There we go. All right, I hit the go live button. It says it's going live in 3, 2, there we go. It says we are live for the March 14th, Pi Day 314, 2024 Westlake Charter School Board meeting. Board President Golick, you have the YouTubes.
Thank you. Welcome everybody who's watching on YouTube. If you'd like to make a public comment, please send those to admin@westlakecharter.com. Put the item which you want to comment on in the subject line, and please limit it to 250 words. We'll make every effort to read it in during the course of the meeting, but if not, we will include them as part of our minutes. With that, Amy, will you please take the roll?
Sure. Hope.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Josh. Meredith. Amber.
Here.
Suzanne.
Here.
Nurali.
Here.
Amy.
Here.
And Ann.
Here. Great, that brings us to celebrations. I'm going to start again because I
Take it
used
away.
the same one. And I want to shout out Amber Husted and her story walk. Did I get that right this time? And how she's our celebrity on the news. And I just think it's a fabulous way to engage students as they get out and get some activity. So congratulations.
Yeah, good lead on that. Good job. Good job.
With that, John, Suzanne.
Suzanne, you want to go?
I'm ready.
Hit it.
I want to celebrate the lottery. My second daughter got into the high school.
Oh, that's
So I will
awesome.
have 2 high school daughters there next year. So
Oh,
really
that's
excited.
super cool. That's super cool.
Sean?
I will celebrate student-led conferences. I just had my last K-8 student-led conference. So that's been, I don't know, our kiddos didn't start in kindergarten. We were still doing it in 3rd grade, so I can't say that it's been 12 years, but it's been a lot of years of student-led conferences, so it's kind of bittersweet, but he'll probably end up at Westlake High School, so we will continue the student-led conferences.
I'll shout out Lila MacGyver, principal at the high school.
Yeah.
The high school is just so on point. Many of us in this room have high schoolers over there, and they just know the kids so well, and all the activities that happen over there, just everything from Lila and her team, the instructional aides, is just like so on point. I'm just incredibly grateful for all the work that they do. So shout out to Lila and her team.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Ms. Patel?
So I'm going to do a 2-part celebration. The second celebration you reminded me of, Sean. But the first celebration I wanted to do is I had a chance to Dr. Ike regarding something we're working on the development committee and check out campus, K through 8 campus during the time they were in class, all the way from kindergarten to 6th grade. And I know we talk about our Westlake ways, but I had a child who went to a transitional kindergarten at another school here in Natomas Unified, and it was, I had an opportunity to see her there, but to also see how we do and how we work with children of all different backgrounds, I just absolutely love it. Everything from kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade, and being able to recognize the differences we all had. I think we also walked in on 6th grader, I forget the teacher's name, I totally slipped my mind. She was talking about disabilities and the conversation of how we all have disabilities. Some we can see and some we cannot see. And just to have those conversations at such a crucial time in a child's growth is just so important, and the things we do here. So
Shout out to Sally Hubbard. That was Hubbard's best.
so that was really great. And then the second part is I had a kindergartner who did her first child-led conference, and it was so cool. She walked
That's so cool.
with me with a wand, and I thought, that's her magical wand she uses at night because she's scared of monsters in the closet.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this wand had a purpose. It was used to point things because her teacher does that, and that was a complete surprise to me. So that was really cool, and to see how much of an influence her teacher has in her life. So that was nice.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
I'm going to celebrate the same thing I celebrated earlier. Missoula Children's Theater was out here last week. We had kindergartners through 8th graders on the stage together. They rehearsed all week, some of them for several hours a day. They did a fantastic job.
They did great.
So huge thanks to all the families who were involved and then the staff members who put that together and then chaperoned it every day. It was a really good experience.
Yeah, Ms. Lula's fantastic.
So I'd like to celebrate the kickoff of the Northern Coastal League season.
Let's go.
It was like perfect weather. It was so good to see all the kids. They were just so happy, all the Northern Coastal students. and the families, and it's always that beautiful parade. Were you out there?
I was not, but yes, yes, I'm a lifelong fan.
Yeah, so that was so nice. It'll be a great season. Oh, thank you.
I want to celebrate the Difference Maker Showcase that we had on campus this week. My second grader was Ringo Starr.
Yeah, I saw him rehearsing.
He is very shy, very sweet, and has a lot of stuff going on. And so to see him work with his teacher, Mrs. Aquisto, to be successful in this event that was really made to showcase all the parts of him that he doesn't actually feel confident about, but he was made to feel successful. And so I think that was just a testament to this like universal design for learning that we do for our students, and this like full inclusion mindset that our teachers and our staff have. And it just made my mommy heart and my teacher heart, and just I was just so proud of who we are as a school, because in that moment I felt my son being supported in some really critical ways, and it melted my heart.
Good. I saw him rehearsing. He told me he was Ringo Starr. We had this connection. He told me his sister got an electric guitar for Christmas. I'm like, oh, I love it. Yeah. AW plan?
Yeah, so as part of our pedestrian safety week, we had an assembly, which, as we started talking about it, I thought, oh my gosh, we haven't done that since pre-COVID. And so Mrs. Gallenbohr had to really front load what it was like to have an assembly for these kids. And she spent time throughout the week having kids practice going in and sitting down and coming out. And it was really cool, but they just loved it. And it was great to see them all in an assembly that we haven't had the chance to do in a long time.
Yeah.
4 years?
Yeah, that was
It was
good.
fun. Our first assembly.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get just killed for this, but today I was at Google's headquarters, and Jeanette Mixitz gave the closing speech. And Jeanette, I'll talk about her in my celebrations today. But
And if you've been in education as long as I have, you've seen this before, that we are constantly reinventing what we're doing.
And Jeanette Mixitz, who's not a technologist, she says out loud, I'm not a technologist, I am a science teacher. She talks about innovation in education and how the world just keeps turning and we're always inventing something new. And then she talks about Westlake Charter School. And I'm like, she talks about what makes us who we are at Westlake Charter School, and the fact that we're constantly reinventing ourselves because we're constantly getting new kids and we got to personalize for them. And I'm telling you, like, it's a 9-minute riff. I almost put it on for us tonight. I'll drop it in a Google Drive, and if you get a chance, give it a listen. It is a brilliant performance. She had the crowd cheering and laughing and hooked on the edge of their seat, and then proudly, as a representative of Westlake Charter School, I had several people walk up to me afterwards and be like, hey, tell me about this school you're at, and this is the CEO of AI EdU and the founders of Diffit, which is one of these AI modification tools. Like, Mixitz just blew them all away. I mean, she was the belle of the ball today. So I'll give you a link to that video. It is really a powerful testament to like a 14-year veteran teacher at this school who says, hey, I think we're doing something special, not around AI, but around the way we bring on new ideas and use our resources of amazing teachers to share with one another, to grow in our innovations. It was really cool. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, love me some Mixitz.
Let's see, any board comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, do we have any public comments?
I see none.
Do we have a wave report, Amy?
I do not have one from her.
Okay.
I'll get the impact report. So the committee did meet. We spent time reviewing both the JAGED profile as well as the graduate student profile, and sort of I feel like adding the Westlake lens to our data, so that the committee could see sort of how we got to where we are in terms of what we do to meet students where they're at and to make sure every student is successful in their way. And then development, Narla, do you want to do?
Sure.
So in development committee, we are getting ready for the big day of giving in May. And so that was kind of getting the ball rolling on processes that were established last year. And the other part of our meeting was spending significant time to really take a step back and really ask ourselves of where do we want this development committee to go in terms of capital fundraising? Can that be a potential, like what are our goals in the funds that we are trying to raise and how we're going to go about bringing on our core partners, which are businesses around in our community, and kind of where to go. So we're hoping to send out a survey to staff members, and administration and staff here on campus selectively, so that will be discussed at our next meeting, and then we'll hopefully share kind of what our results are in the coming months.
Great. Sean?
So we reviewed the second interim, which is on the agenda for tonight, and recommended it to come to the agenda tonight, obviously, or it was not on the agenda. Really redundant. That is what we did.
And in governance, we sort of reviewed our overall board structure with the committees, with the charge, we're gonna come back and talk again next month about how the committee can serve to provide further oversight or focus and sort of where the board work heads into the next year. With that, Dr. Ike.
Very good, very good. Well, there's just all kinds of good stuff. I think I won't ever say there's too many celebration slides, but there might be too many celebration slides.
Sorry, maybe,
Oh.
Can I go back?
Yeah, we
caught
should.
it
Oh my goodness.
I caught
Sorry,
it first.
Kahigas. Oh, go ahead.
Mrs. Cahigas, is there anyone at the high school wanting to make a public comment?
I was wondering when you were going to ask.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm looking outside. I don't see anybody there. No comments.
Perfect, thank you. I'm so sorry. One day I will remember on the first pass.
Thank you, Mr. Kahigas.
With that, Mr. Ike.
She almost got trapped into a very long slide deck. She was like,
No.
don't let him start talking. Oh my goodness. Well, lots of celebrations. I know you've already hit a bunch of them, so I'll try to skip past them when I see them. I would like to touch base on this so that I'm clear about what this was that I was celebrating. My celebration was Jeanette Mixits. She is phenomenal. But let me tell you what we were doing and why we were there. We were down at Google headquarters today because Silicon Schools, who is one of our partners over these last 4 years to develop our high school, Silicon Schools launched a cohort of AI or artificial intelligence educators to just explore, hey, what are you doing out there? Are you using AI? What's happening? And so we sent Ramon Paredes, who's our STEM teacher at the high school, and Jeanette Mixits, and said, hey, well, these guys are early adopters and innovators. Let them join the cohort. We'll see what happens. So there's about 20 educators, California, Oregon, Washington, in the room today at Google headquarters there on Embarcadero, which is beautiful. And each was giving like a poster presentation of like, hey, I didn't know much about AI. I started playing with it. It dawned on me, this is how we should use it. And I learned, oh, this is probably how we shouldn't use it. And people were transparently saying, we're just exploring. And it was amazing who was in the room. It was a very small room. But the people who were there were reporters there, there were researchers there. A big lead researcher who does some advising on state policy for all 50 states. She was there, got a good chance to speak with her. Jeanette Mixits down on the right there is talking to a crowd of people, and the man in the check shirt right there, at the end of her presentation, walks over to her and goes, hey, you were just talking about the application DFID, and you were singing its praises. I'm the founder of DFID. And she goes, in classic Jeanette Mixits, she goes, can I give you a hug? And they both teared up, and it was like this love fest. It was just unbelievable because he had seen, she was saying, hey, with this differentiation tool, Jeanette Mixits, take my very complex and well thought out curriculum for 11th graders, and I make it accessible to people who can read below 11th grade, or people who do not have English as their primary language, or the neurodiverse students that are in the classroom and need modifications in different ways. She's like, I could do that, and I've always done it my whole career, but you got to stay up to midnight every night to write 17 different lesson plans for 17 unique She was now with this tool, and so that's a really interesting use of artificial intelligence. And what I learned today from being around these incredibly smart people was that nobody knows what's happening, right? And B, like keeping this tool teacher-centered and not releasing it to students yet is where we all think we should be in the industry, that teachers should be using this as a tool to leverage the heavy lift of UDL. I mean, imagine if you can, through the lens of AI, go, hey, I'd like to create more engagement or representation. Here's my data, and the AI helps you do that. So fantastic opportunity to jam with some people today. Jeanette Nixis, Ramon Paredes, both made Westlake very proud. And everybody who had the name Westlake on the tip of their tongue leaving this conference. And there was some heavy hitters in there, so it was really cool. Really cool. All right, I'll just riff through the rest of them quick. We did rock some spoken word in 8th grade. There's some all-stars on that screen right there. If you haven't seen spoken word, come by next time we do it because it is fantastic. The walking school bus assembly, big shout out to our partners at Jive. But this assembly was amazing. Our kids need more. I think we all walked out, we're like, we need more assemblies. Bring on back the assembly. It was great. It was great to have everybody together. It was great to have Jive come out and jam with our kids for sure. And here's a great picture from Missoula, Peter and Wendy. And again, like, we had some really plugged in kids. Some, I love when the older kids are like, yeah, I want to be in the play, because they bring their big voices, and it was just spectacular. Really good work there. It was K11 conference week. K11. Last time we'll say it, because there's a lottery slide coming up where we become a K-12 school. But conference week was awesome, wonderful on both campuses. Love to see our community engage. I don't know that we talked talent shows since last we were here, so we'll throw it out there. Of course, the teacher dance, brought the house down. It was the bellow of the ball, a packed house at the talent show as always. And big shout out to the staff, the families, the kids who make it all happen. A lot of people put a lot of hours into this fun little event, is what it seems. That was a fun little event. Hundreds of hours on the back end. So big shout out to the team for doing that. Couldn't really get you a picture of this. I think I texted the team. I'm a dummy. Hey, let me get a picture of SATs. Everybody's like, we're not allowed to take pictures. I was like, I know, but did you get any pictures? So we got a picture of an empty testing room at a Scantron. Hey, it was super cool. We're like a grown-up high school, you guys. We had SATs, and shout out to you. The board allowed us to do this during the school day. From an equity and access standpoint, hey, our kids got to take the SAT on their campus, at their home turf, as opposed to saying, you're the first person in your multi-generational family who's ever taken the SAT. Go over to McClatchy, find Building C on a Saturday, and that's the barrier where a kid goes, I don't need to, right? So great that we, and it's a lot of effort, and there's money involved in that, but I think good on us for making that available to our kids, and I think they did great. I think they did. This is like becoming a thing. You guys, we're in our 3rd year now, and it is now like a well-oiled machine. Our upperclassmen take these 8th graders on a shadow day, and it is like they're walking the halls. I'm sneaking up on them, listening to them. They are so articulate about our school and what happens and what's expected, and then they get them in this Q&A session and a little panel. It is awesome. I think our 8th graders really benefit from the expertise of our 10th and 11th graders. Come on. This is it right here, right? Where's Ringo? There's Ringo. Oh, there he is. There's Ringo. He's up there. There's Ringo up there. Teddy Roosevelt. Did Teddy do?
Teddy did
the Pledge of Allegiance, looking like that? Mm-hmm. I love it. Right? I love it. Yeah.
And he was so proud. Oh my gosh, he was so proud of himself.
Yeah, the difference makers. I mean, and what I kind of dig about this, right, is teachers as designers, is this is a unit of study that's been in 2nd grade. I mean, as long as I've been here, it's been at least a decade. And in our UDL professional development 2 weeks ago, one of the little videos was Lauren Poole and Maddie Folden, 2nd grade teacher, Maddie Street, sorry, Maddie, 2nd grade teachers talking about, gosh, this unit's evolved over the years that we've all been here, and we evolve it because we're trying to make it more accessible and more equity influenced. And you think, oh, cool, man, you got this 10-year-old unit or 15-year-old you can just take off the shelf and rinse and repeat. Not at Westlake, man. People are always kind of reinventing and making things, improving their work. So great, what a great opportunity for our kids to shine. This just came hot off the presses. Our esports team at the high school went 8-1 this season and made playoffs. They are a playoff-bound esports team. I know I've talked about esports before, but just in case you forgot, or in case you're out there on YouTube, like, what's an esport? We were talking about League of Legends video game, where they play team on team. It's a 5-on-5 deal, and our squad is, dare I say, dominating in the league, led by none other than Roland Eichley, their coach. And so they're heading out to playoffs. Super proud of that team and excited for them. First ever K-12 lottery. It was, not a lot of people come to the lottery anymore because it's all digital. But, like, there was a moment of, like, all right, from now on, as soon as we hit this button, we're never going to not be K-12. Okay, we had 12th grade. Yeah, like, there you go. It was just it was a weird milestone feeling. So big shout out to Melissa, Mindy, the whole team who put all the work in to make sure it happened. It went smoothly, and I'll give you some report outs. Hey, college tours. We went out to UC Merced. Kids had a great time. I love that we do, small state schools, do the big UC. These kids really get to see a wide variety of campuses, and they come back with just sunshine. They're just excited about what they saw, mostly about the food, which is weird, but like, you walked on a college campus, you were there with your friends, and it really is a good experience, and this year went very smoothly. I don't know why I'm knocking on wood, but last year we got like a flat tire, then a second flat tire.
Oh, yeah.
This year they're like we went on a field lesson and came back and nothing happened. I'm like, that's a good field lesson right there. That's a good field lesson. I don't know if you've walked the halls of the high school, but I just got to put this out there. Like, our art teacher, Ms. Firsty, it really has a spectacular set of products. If you walk in her classroom, you don't hear any of the 3D art, but the 2D and 3D art is phenomenal in her classroom. Like, our kids are really talented. And so I just want to, like, take you on a little tour. Firsty said, hey, would it be okay if I kind of decorated the hallway? I was like, hey, you should make this hallway your gallery, because around that corner, there's no other classrooms. I'm like, go. When she has taken over this hallway, and now they're doing blue tape muraling. Right, so it's a non-permanent mural. It's really cool, man. So anyway, hey, if you're at the high school, go check it out. Our kids' work is phenomenal. I love the pedestrian safety campaign this week. Big shout out to our families being involved. You can see the Sacramento Police Department who were here. They rode their motorcycles around the tetherball poles. The kids were like, oh my goodness. It was great. And then the police officers came out and spoke to the children on the blacktop, and it was a cool deal. A big shout out there. And this was kind of a big deal. We've been doing the recruitment circuit. We've been out there at the recruitment fairs. We were at the one over at Thomas Charter School a couple weeks ago. Then we went to the Sac State one, and new president of Sac State, Dr. Wood, he came out and did his opening address right there in front of the old Westlake Charter booth. It's like, hey, you picked a good table right there, Dr. Wood. Well done. Which is wonderful, actually, because we're all big fans of Dr. Wood. So Emily Batten was like, oh my gosh, like, we're going to get to meet Dr. Wood. Big deal. But yeah, it's been great to be out at the recruitment fairs. We've met some great candidates. In fact, we had art interviews this week. We had a couple candidates from the recruitment fair. So good stuff. All right. I only have one strategic action, but it's kind of long. It's family surveys and then updates. We're going to tackle a couple items as well. I'm going to give you in paper, because I'm going to chicka through it, but if you want to, scribble on it or look at it, let's give you this. Could you?
Yep.
We threw whole parts in case you want to put them in your binder. But yeah. So yeah, I think it's important that we keep this regular, right? That we come out, we do the family survey at least twice a year out loud, and talk about what we're doing with it. The reason I put this in strategic actions, it's funny. I used to put the family survey in updates, like I was updating you about family surveys. But in reality, if you do what we do, which is you take the family survey, then you give it to you disaggregate the data, then you give it to the administration team. They're actually taking action on feedback from families. So I've moved this year into strategic actions as opposed to updates, which made sense to me. I also kind of want to acknowledge that, my job is to lead the development and retention of high-quality mission-aligned leadership staff who are guiding the school in the direction of our strat plan. Well, this data goes to your principals and your vice principals, your directors. So this is really important data for them to understand what our families are thinking. It's a practice we've always done. I thought I'd call it out here. And then in goal area 2 of our strat plan, right, we say that we'll be successful when we include the voices of our students, our staff, our parents as key decision makers. Well, We are doing our student survey in April, it's California Healthy Kids. We are doing some staff survey work right now. We just did a DEI survey, and we have a time pilot survey that's coming out for staff. So again, bringing those voices back from students and staff, and then the family survey. We're going to give you the fall results now, and the winter results at the end of next month. You recall that the family survey asks 5 key questions in these 5 areas: innovation, collaboration, academics, SEL, and communication. It's the same 5 questions all the time, and let's see how we do. I give you this data here just to say, hey, from fall of 21 to fall of 23, the data kind of lines up like this. These are the kind of the mean average, these are the average scores. So you just go into the data and say, hey, what's the average score? All the way across the board from fall of 21 to fall of 23, I mean, we're down probably less than half a point all the way across the board, which I'd rather be up half a point. However, as I compare our results to colleagues of mine in other schools, they're like, hey, you already got an 8.7 across the board. Yeah, it's okay, So I think if you read the results, most people tell us, doing a great job. I love Westlake. Keep it up in our comments. But I don't put those comments on these slides. I put the comments of like, where are areas where you want to improve? I told this story when we first developed this survey. I'll tell it now if you didn't ever hear it. And it is this. We could have developed a survey that says, hey, just rank us on a scale of 1 to 10. And you'll see like lots of 10s, right? Which is useful information that makes us feel good. That's great. And then you're going to see some 1s and 2s. You're like, well, that person's really upset. These scores are only useful when you clump them all together and go, on average, where are we at? Okay, you're at 8.7, fine. The second question is the most important question. So I learned this from John Crippo, who said, hey, if you go and get a steak dinner at a restaurant and the waiter says, how's your meal? What will you say? It's fine. It's good. It's great. It's great. That's what you'll say. The waiter comes over to you and goes, hey, how can we improve that steak dinner? You're like, that's a little salty. But you never would have heard, my dinner was a little salty, because no one tells you that unless you ask the right question. So we purposely constructed our survey to say, how can we improve in this area? We could have said, you got any other thoughts? Nope, we're good. But we specifically said, how can we improve in this area? And so we end up with some really good feedback. And so I go through and I qualitatively code the data and then kind of bring together the highlight reel. These aren't all the comments, right? But this is kind of a combined or summary of the results I'm seeing. So there's a desire for continued investment in facilities and program offerings. There's a big comment in here about the high school. People are wondering, when are we building the high school? What's going on? I'm like, we are clearly not being clear enough, because people want to know, is it open tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, no. So there's a desire. There's this around this idea of innovation. There's this thought that like, hey, high school feels innovative because it's new, but we'd love to see a facility. There's also this conversation in the data that says, hey, I'm a K-8 person. I feel like you guys are really working hard at that high school to make it innovative. I don't see a lot of innovation here. I think we're doing a good job, but you asked me, how can we improve innovation? So that's interesting. There's some conversation around targeted and timely communications that comes out here, and it comes out again later, and it's mostly around, hey, my kid got in a fight at school, or my kid was getting bullied at school, and communications weren't fast enough for me. And I'm like, yep, if you're having that experience, I see that. So, it's something for us to hear. We need to hear that as an admin. And then a focus on parent involvement really came out in a couple of areas, and it was, even one person said it, post-pandemic, we just have had a hard time getting our foot back on campus. I'm like, yeah, we're figuring it out too. But I think it was a good, that's good. It's good, solid feedback. How can we improve? Those are just 20 responses, 68 total responses. This particular category had 20 qualitative responses. You can stop me in the show. I'm going to keep rambling through, but stop me if you need me. Let's look at collaboration. Again, we're at an 8.8, which is right where we were back in 21. We slipped up to a 9.1 at one point, but we're less than a standard deviation away. We're kind of a flat line. Really on all this data, it's pretty flat. Again, lots of high marks, a couple down low. I went through and I sometimes look at these to see like, hey, you're the lowest one out there. What was your qualitative comment? And there's a couple interesting anomalies in there where somebody went through and kind of put what I felt were low marks all across the board, but didn't type anything. I'm like, well, I would love to know what you're saying, you know? That's okay. Improvement in this area, again, let's focus on volunteers. I'm like, hey, man, how do I get more plugged in? Which we've actually heard always, even if we've been pushing for it. It's like, how can you get me to come volunteer? But a desire for more opportunities for volunteer, a desire for increased communication regarding individual student situations. So very similar to the last data. And that was only 12 responses. So more responses on the first question than the second. Academics, you can see this 8.9 to 8.3, right? And we're actually going to see some academic data tonight where post-pandemic, our academic data is arguably the lowest it's ever been, you know? And we're going to look at that. There's some real positive future outlooks, and we're looking over at my kindergarten teacher because our K1 data, you're not going to see that tonight because they're not going to take CASP, but we're seeing like, oh, thank goodness. So our 2s and 3s, who were getting a lot of intervention right now, we'll talk about later, but they're getting a lot of intervention because those were our kindergartners in pandemic. And now we're seeing the 2 grades behind our 2nd and 3rd grade, 1st and kinder right now, are really shining. That kindergarten data looks great. So, well, I think academics are a little low. I think we're on the comeback there post-pandemic. But you can see how spread this is, right? So the other data was very J-curve, you know, very high over here, very low over here. You're seeing it spread across the 7s and 8s in a different way. But you know, we're still in the 8.3 range, kind of where we were last year. In this area, you know, there's this concern regarding academic retakes, the standards-based grading as being less rigorous and potentially not preparing students for high school. That's what the K-8 families say. And then the high school families say, I'm worried about that retakes are not preparing my kid for college. We have made a decision as an organization to be all about like, hey, standards-based grading and retakes, we think the data shows. And, you know, our K-8 kids are not underperforming in high school. Our K-8 kids are killing it. You know, the ones that go to intercom are constantly in the top 10. The ones that are going to our high school are crushing it there. It's just a hard thing to sell because we, whatever generation we are, looks at our kid not getting an opportunity to take a retake. Like, I'm never going to take a retake. What do you mean you're going to take your math test again? You bombed your math test? So there's definitely that tone in there, but I have to tell our admin team, hey, this is a constant concern of our families so that we're constantly communicating to our families about this. Otherwise, they'll constantly question. Ms. Patel?
I may ask a silly,
No, it's good.
I may ask a silly question because I'm just not familiar with an academic retake is.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. Thanks for asking it. Yeah, so it is our pedagogical belief, right, and it's well-founded and evidence-based, research that we want you to learn addition, this single digit, with this type of addition. We don't believe that you should if you don't learn it by October 15th when the test is, well, then that's it. We're all moving on, and you have failed to do that. We say, hey, it's not about when you learn it, it's that you learn it. So we grade by standards-based grading, this standard addition, this standard subtraction, and we're gonna allow you to retake these tests or assessments to make sure that, finally we got her. She didn't get it October 15th, but thank goodness by December 12th, when she retook it, we got her up to speed. She now knows this standard. A lot of people just don't believe that, so they say, hey, you don't get to retake tests, right? The tests are set in stone. And I think what we hear a lot is, if you let kids retake the test, then when they go to high school, they're gonna think they can retake the test. And then they go, well, out west, like they can. They go, well, if they go to intercom, they won't. Yeah, kids are malleable and super code switchy and intelligent. They get to intercom and go, no retakes? Okay, I'll try my best. We're not seeing the negative. But then I get a lot of data that goes, hey, well, when they get in the workforce, there'll never be retakes in the workforce. And I go, really? I manage a lot of people and I give retakes all the time. It's okay. I love the people, but everybody needs a retake. Yeah.
My only question is, what's the best way, and I'm not micromanaging anybody.
No, you're good.
Because when we changed to standards-based grading, we did a lot of sessions on that.
Yeah.
And I would never want to add to anybody's plate.
Yeah, but
maybe, because this is probably the #1 criticism
Yeah.
I hear of our academics.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder,
Yeah, I think
how would you get the word
I wonder if you didn't build one of these, Everest Academy modules, and you're like, hey, take this online module, and in an hour you'll learn all about this pedagogy and philosophy. And if you had more questions, you could But that might be, because you're right, we spent tons of time telegraphing the move. So all of us who were there were like, I get the move. My kid's doing great. But yeah, 3 years later, 4 years later, 5 years later, you're new to the school. You're like, wait, what? You can retake tests. Yeah, there should be punishments and consequences. And you're not very smart. We'll prove it. We don't do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's not here too, but I mean, in years past, this would also include homework.
Oh, yeah, it might come up. Yeah, oh yeah, it comes up. Well, my kid should have homework. Oh, yeah, go give him homework. Yeah, you should. Have him come mow my lawn.
There's plenty of work to do at home.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. There's just, and for Ms. Patel, because I was just being silly, but we also, we're not heavy on homework. And we do that because we really believe in that whole child academic and social emotional balance, and we want our kids to go home and go play sports, and we want them to go home and be with their family. We want them to go to church, and we want them to do their thing. And the research is pretty clear. Like, it's really, really clear. Read every night. We'll see you in college. Yeah. So there's a concern that support being given in class is lessening the availability for those who need less support. Hey, we're a full inclusion school, and people start to recognize, hey, wait a minute, this kid's getting a ton of support. Is that holding my kid back? So again, I think this is information campaign. This is us not telegraphing what we've telegraphed in the past. How do we get people? And you were saying, we should do parents go to school night again, and maybe we'll do it through Everest Academy so people can do it whenever they want. But these are lessons that we've taught, but maybe we need to reteach, maybe reassess. 20 response on that. Those are ones we see usually. Social emotional, this is full disclosure, it's a little bit of a trigger for some people. Politically, they take this to mean something that I don't think we think it means. And so some people give it some pretty low marks at times. And that's okay. There's a little bit of anti-SEL rhetoric out there, and it comes out in the survey a little bit. But for the most part, I think, we're kind of right in the range where we were before. And, what we hear is, hey, there's bullying I'm hearing about at school. There's kids being picked on at school. I'm not sure that the culture is as inclusive as you guys maybe hope that it is. And so that's a real big concern for us. I'd say of all the slides, this is the one that I go, we got 60 teachers on this campus and 30 on that campus, all killing it with academic. I'm not worried about the academic slide. I'm like, we all need to get on this piece and be like, let's make sure kids feel safe at school. Even if that was only a handful of comments, one's enough. And then I put this in here. There was just some concerns regarding SEL being political and therefore not appropriate to be addressed. And there's just a couple of comments in there, and there were also kind of low quantitative scores who just have grabbed onto some rhetoric that I don't think they understand SEL the same way we do. We just mean, hey, kids should have self-awareness. Who am I? Why do I matter in the universe? Social awareness. Who are you? Why do you matter in the universe? We both matter, and both those can be true. And what are responsible decisions around that? So yeah, I just put that up there to let you know that some people out there may make comments to the board through this survey instrument that say, hey, you guys shouldn't be focused on SEL at all. I'm like, well, if we just called it, raising humans, I think everybody would be behind it. And then communication, always one of our strongest ones, but still kind of that same variance, about 0.3 down. And you can see the graph right there. Lots of 10s and lots of really positive comments on that. Really big shout out to our teachers. Our teachers just do a phenomenal job of that really consistent, that Friday newsletter, that consistent, along with the school has a very nice cadence of communication. I think that's one of the reasons we always score so well is that combo punch there. Let's see, when there's an issue with behavior, communications are less clear. People always want more information, but even if there's this rhetoric in there that's like, hey, it wasn't my kid involved in the thing that you're talking about, but I want more information. And I know, because I'm the one writing the comment, I'm like, well, we can't give you more information. But it's in there, and I know it's in there, and I know that's how families feel. They're like, you sent an all call. It was important enough for you to send out an email that said something happened. I want more. And we're like, hey, I get that. And that was the only call for improvement there. So what other ways can Westlake improve? And this is the last column. And this is the column we get, I should have quantified it, but we get I love, when you get these great stories in here, you know. In general, you know, what are the ways can we improve? And there's always like we love Westlake, my family's been here, da, da, da. So, but that's not what I grabbed. I grabbed these. Strong call for a clear path to a permanent high school campus. I mean, I don't need to sell you guys on that, but I just want you to know that that is in the water, and it didn't seem to be just high school families. You know, people are like, hey, we all want to go to Westlake Charter High School, and we all kind of want a building that looks like this. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah. Cake, eat it too. Yeah, right, me too. And then addressing student behavior was kind of kind of a unifier. Like, hey, there's been seemingly more behavior. Part of it is because we have a high school, so you have high school behavior too. And part of it is, I think, post-pandemic, there's just more behavior in schools. I'm telling you, I go and pal around with other administrators, and I go, you guys too? Okay, you know, it's wild. Yeah.
Can I ask one question about the behavior thing? Is it we're not addressing people's behavior, like, so our concerns being coming to administration, and administration's just not addressing it to whatever level parents want, or is it just there's a lot of behavior and we're
No, I think what this is talking about is addressing behavior. People love, not people don't love, I don't say it. I don't want to be what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to be, it's snarky. What I hear people saying in the data is that they feel there are not enough consequences for student behavior. People use words like expulsions, suspensions. Look, I think our administrative team does an appropriate job of utilizing their administrative credential in the state of California to suspend when Ed Code directs us to do so. You know, we are all about restorative justice. We are a responsive classroom school. We think that we play as much a part in student behavior as students do. It's how we do what we do. It's kind of like standard-based grading, though. It's if you're just seeing it on the drive-by, you're like, that's not the way we did it, and it's tough. So yeah, there are 1,000 children on this campus. There will soon be 500 children on that campus. We're a lot of kids. Behaviors happen. I think we try to address it as appropriately as we can. However, people, I think, often ask us, and you probably hear some of this, people ask us to be more heavy-handed than we typically are. True, Shariah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think when it's somebody's child, the instinct to,
Yeah.
protect your child and advocate for your child is one that I encounter all the time, and trying to explain to them it's our philosophy on discipline and the progressive discipline and the discipline matrix, all of those things are there, but they don't necessarily know. It's like all this other stuff. You have to explain to them and hope that helps.
Yeah, and not that we can't also engage in areas of improvement. I mean, we can certainly improve in this area. Everybody right now that I'm talking to is grappling with, like, how do we engage in more PBIS structured, protocols, indoors, outdoors. Everyone in the industry is grappling with some post-pandemic behavior, and we're like, how do we change our practices? Rather, because the whack-a-mole won't ever work. Like, you can suspend every time a kid does something. Well, you're going to just have a lot of suspensions. Yeah. And then creating a sense of community for parents. It does come up a lot. It's part of the volunteerism piece. Hey, we'd like to be on campus more. And even at our heyday, when I think we were our most community, pre-pandemic, I think that's pretty common. People still want more. It's like sports. They always want more sports. Like, we're giving you sports. We want more. And that was the full 60. That was 68 responses on that one. Okay. I got some exciting updates for you. Yeah, this is where we are on the show, right? Yeah, that's where we are. I was going to take a pie break, but no, we'll take pie break before academics. Okay. Okay, we had our random public lottery. It was held on March 4th. Applicants all received an email telling them where they were on the wait list or where they were offered enrollment. Members of our community, some were in person, some just stayed home and got the email that evening. Here are our enrollment projections for 23-24. Obviously, we are looking at full enrollment K-8. I didn't put that on this slide, but
This is where we're at.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm going to get to the projections. Sorry. Yes, this is where we are. We are fully enrolled 1,000 at the K-8, but our current 9th grade is 137. We are 112 in 10th grade, at 124 in 11th grade. And as we project forward, we expect to have 145. And watch the numbers here, because we're trying not to exceed 500. but you don't want to under-enroll in ninth grade and then undershoot 500. It's a tricky balance. We're shooting for 145 projected in ninth grade, and we're well on pace for that. We had enough applicants and enough. We pulled 75 and offered them enrollment. It looks like, roughly half of our eighth graders will also roll up. So we think 145 is very doable for the fall. We're projected at 135 10th grade, 110 11th grade, 120 12th grade, which puts you at 510. We are budgeted for 500. We're not going to adjust to 510 because we just, you don't know yet. We have not figured out a matriculation pattern, and it's funny because you get to the semester and we lost a couple kids. We're all, oh, and then a drove of kids come in from intercom. So, the kids are figuring out where they want to be, and they have Westlake as an option, and it goes back and forth. So it's been really interesting to watch the numbers, but that is our projection for next year. And of course, we project full enrollment at the K-8. There's great lottery. We'll have plenty of people on the wait list. Any questions about lottery or enrollment for next year? Super duper. All right. There's a little parcel update. I don't know if you saw it coming or not, but here it comes. That little slide right there, that's from 2019, the days of yesteryear. And in 2019, we located this parcel as one of 4 possible parcels that we were looking at. And back then, the seller was not interested in breaking off this parcel. We were like, hey, can we buy that parcel? They're like, nope. So that piece of land that we've been staring at now since 2019, at very first wasn't even on the table. There was no plans by the seller to connect the club center cut through, which you can now see is cutting through, right? There's no plans for that. NUSD at the time was like, oh my gosh, a school bond? We won't be doing a bond for decades, right? 2019, now we're looking, down the barrel of a possible bond. And our founding freshman class was still 2 years away. Like, we didn't know who they were going to be, and now they're juniors, right? So we've been looking at that parcel of land for quite some time. We also had no idea that the pandemic would interrupt everything. I mean, in 2019, we're like, we're buying a piece of dirt. Where do we write the check? Right? So here we are. In the fall of 22, we announced that we were entering into escrow, right? And between 19 and 22, we got a lot done. You opened up a high school in a temporary facility, enrolled over 300 students across 2 grade levels. You invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in upgrading that amazing temporary facility. And you curated community feedback regarding, hey, where's some short-term and long-term facilities needs? Oh, you guys want a black box theater? Oh, you guys want improved athletics? And so after that time, between 22 and 24, the City Council of Sacramento approved the parcel map, which then allowed us to really move forward on closing, and we expected to close early in 24. And between 22 and 24, we enrolled over 400 students in 3 grade levels, invested in improvements, like the Black Box Theater, and expanded our athletics. We got a swim team now, right? We got varsity sports, we got esports. I mean, a lot has happened, all while that dirt has just remained dirt, which is fascinating. Nothing's happened out there. We've begun to work to gain assurances regarding the future development of our permanent campus, right? We're getting close to language with NUSD on that. And so here we go. On March 8th, 2024, Westlake Charter School closed escrow and officially became the owners of an 8-acre parcel of land, which we expect will be designated as the future home of our permanent Westlake Charter High School campus. This is the slide where it says congratulations to you on all of your hard work. Well done, everybody. It is a moment of celebration. We believe that this piece of dirt will be designated in the facilities master plan that I think will be at the NUSD board meeting on the 29th. The end of the month. And so it's very exciting. So that parcel of land is designated as such in that facilities master plan and all of that follows. It's a pretty exciting time, and it's been a strangely long road to get there. It was some curves in it. But thinking back to 2019 when the seller was like, we're not interested in selling you this land, and now it's ours. So we're very excited about that. And so I will give you a quick update on the facility use agreement, kind of where we're at, regarding my goal 2, which is, focus on the K-12 expansion and eventual development of that parcel. Well, congratulations. We now own that parcel of land. All right, step 1. You guys are land barons. Feels good. Right. That's great. I don't know. No, can we camp out there or something? No camping. Yeah. Short term, no tents out there. Short term solution. So hey, good news. The Natoma Unified School District had their board meeting last night. Was that last night? And they approved the portable installation. I talked with Angela Herrera today, the liaison. So the installation was on the board agenda. The architects have been approved. Noe, who is our project manager on the project, has looked at the timeline. Is like, hey, we're looking green light, good to go. So we think at the April 17th NUSD board meeting, the whole project will be the contract with the modular team who owns the portables. That will go through on April 17th, and we'll be, rocking those portables before the first day of school. We also have the Oasis expansion under contract. We're working with the same architectural team that helped design the original Oasis with the paint on the ground and the planters and the whatnot. So we're working with them to say, okay, we're gonna put portables over here. What are we putting over here so we can expand, area for our students, outdoor learning and, areas to congregate. And then long-term solutions. So we're having some really productive meetings right now with the Natoma Unified School District Superintendent, Dr. Castillo, and Angela Herrera. We've sent over some language talking about assurances. Like, okay, if we are at a point right now where the district is not ready to ink up like a if-then statement like we've had in the past where it said, hey, if a bond passes, we're going to build this size school. If we're not ready to commit to those type of details, can we commit to some assurances that says, hey, we just got this piece of land that's in your facility's master plan. Can we all agree in writing that like there is a future construction project between the two of us? And so we're working on that language right now. And I hope to get some of that back in the next week. And so I'll be letting you know where that goes from there. And with that, it's Pi Day. Any questions about the facilities master plan? Did I say facilities master plan? The facility use agreement. Sorry. Any questions on that? Okay. All righty.
Would you mind if we maybe handled consent first and then did pie?
It's your day.
Does that work?
Yep.
It's my day. So let's go ahead. We'll do consent and then we'll take a break. One note, Steve, you wanted to present a change to item C.
Correct, yes. So the Federal Form 990, Section 4A says public elementary school. And since we're K11, K12, there was just a request to remove the word elementary, so I made that request to the auditors. They should make that change and send it back, but I don't anticipate any other changes, so.
Very good.
So item C would then be accept and approve as amended.
Correct.
But on that note, is there any likelihood they won't make the change? Because I don't want to not put you in the position of not approving. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. I think they'll approve. I sent it off to the auditing team today. I have not heard back yet, but again, it's not substantive. It's just taking a word out, so I think they'll be okay with it.
Oh, I agree. I just don't want to accidentally make us late.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to modify C a little differently.
Okay.
I want to say accept and approve with the changes proposed, but should the change be rejected, that we still file the Form 199 and Form 990
That'll work. Thank you.
as that motion. Sorry, I just want to cover us because I
Good.
just
No,
don't
that's
want to
good.
be late. With that modification, are there any other questions on items A through C, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll move consent.
Thank you, Amber. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Nerali. Amy?
Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Nerali,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and Ann.
Yes.
Perfect. So with that, let's have some pie.
Okay. We can turn our cameras and our microphones off, and YouTubers will be right back. After these messages, we'll be right back.
I truly meant it.
Okay, YouTubers, thanks for letting us take a quick break. We had a little pie because today is 314. It is Pi Day, and we're back to the regularly scheduled action.
Perfect, which brings us to the meaty topic of the second interim budget. Steve, I'm assuming you're presenting?
Yes, I will present tonight.
Thank you.
Do you want to drive it for me?
Absolutely.
Look at it. There we go.
Is that yours? No. Ah, here we go. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go.
So we're here tonight to talk about the second interim. This may be a familiar slide to you. So this talks about some of the elements that a nonprofit needs to comply with. And as a nonprofit that runs a public school, it's a little hard to see, but that kind of third line down is green where it says second interim. In the second interim, there's really everything from July 1st, when the fiscal year starts and the school year starts, all the way through the end of January, so January 31st. So if anything were to happen after January 31st, like a parcel purchase or $6.2 million expenditure, that would not be reflected in the second interim. It would be reflected in our year-end financial statements, but you won't necessarily see that tonight because that happened after January 31st. It needs to get to the board and approved by the board by March 15th. So again, we are right on time for getting that taken care of tonight. So before we jump into second interim, there's a but first, right, before we jump in. So today, a couple of legislators produced a report. This report is called Shrink the Shortfall. We've talked in this room and in Finance Committee for many, many months now about the state budget and the state budget situation, whether it's a $24 billion or $38 billion or $78 billion deficit. We all acknowledge there's a deficit at the state level. So we have a few legislators coming out today saying, hey, here's an initial plan on how the state might be able to begin to address the deficit early and making some of these proposed adjustments in the tune of $17 billion now, rather than waiting several months from now as the May revise comes out. So this was released today. A couple highlights. It talks about program reductions, some internal borrowing, tax shifts, things like that, some funding delays, deferrals, deferrals being, we would owe you money today, we'll pay you that money tomorrow. A lot of programs were affected except for really K-12. There's some funds for facility financing that'll impact K-12, but nothing from a kind of day-to-day financing standpoint that'll hit at K-12 right now. Given the scope of the potential deficit, it's not to say that nothing won't happen on K-12, but that's at least not in their first cut right now. So it's good to see that the legislators are thinking about it, proposing it, trying to take some early action on it, and we'll continue to monitor over the next couple months to see what it looks like. So positive news today. So what's in the second budget? Everything, right, up to the 31st, but it includes all revenues and expenditures, so revenues from the state, from a base, from donations, interest payments, and those type of things. We continue to use school services. They are a statewide California organization that provides timely, updated financial and advocacy information to schools. I actually can't think of a district or really school that isn't a member of school services because they are so deep in the edgy world and provide such thoughtful information that a lot of folks use them for their financial back-end information. And it's really based upon the governor's generating budget proposal. So the governor came out a couple months ago, made a proposal. So this second interim budget is based upon the multi-year proposal and what he is projecting at the moment. So if we jump ahead, kind of look at some key points on the revenue slide. If you read the board brief, you'll see that it's updated from the funding rates that are being proposed. Enrollment and average daily attendance, or ADA, are holding steady at 94%. That's what the budget is based on. We've also noted in the brief that supply and field lesson donations have really lagged expectations and our previous historical experience. We talked a little bit about that earlier tonight in volunteerism, right, and getting folks to be connected, so there may be a kind of connection piece there to reevaluate. But for field lessons, for example, we budget using general funds $180,000, right? So every field lesson is planned on, every student goes, regardless if we get a nickel in or not. Out of that $180,000, we ask for about $128,000 in donations to come in. Again, if those donations come in, great. If not, every kid is still going.
Why do you ask for only 128 of 180?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, we have about a 40% unduplicated count rate. Unduplicated count includes those students who are on free reduced price lunch, maybe English learners or foster. So we kind of net those out. These are families who are struggling to meet potentially day-to-day needs. So asking for contributions for field lesson might be a little bit out of reach. So we kind of drop that unduplicated rate down to about the 128 level. But great question. And based upon that $128,000, we've got about $40,000 in to date. So again, kind of lagging quite substantially. Everything that does not come in is really offset by school general funds, again, because every student will go on every lesson that's planned. The other note that I would point out is that third point, bullet point says one-time donations really help buoy our ending fund balance. So if you take a look at the second interim, kind of the consolidated page, you'll see that we projected at that time to have a positive ending balance, again, pre-parcel purchase of about $500,000. And if you also take a look at the one-time funds that have come in as a second interim, we received a Reed Hastings grant, some Silicon Schools funds, and early interest payment. So all of those kind of one-times totaled $351,000. So kind of if you were to net those out and not really rely on those one-time funds, the ending balance would have still been positive, which is great news, but a little bit thinner than we've seen in the past. So just an update to the board. On the expenditure side of the house, the good news is that expenditures are really in line with where we've anticipated before. We've seen some increases on student services and really for our MTS student support model. So those see some increase in really vendor costs there. But also in our substitute pool, we use a vendor who's a fantastic vendor, provides us with daily kind of Johnny on the spot subs when we need them, and we seem to need them quite often. So as we've seen a decrease in kind of our line item budget for subs that we may have on a day-to-day basis, we've seen an increase on the vendor side because they're having to outsource. They just have a broader pool that they can connect and have here. So
it's a really interesting note too, not to elongate the conversation, but a decade ago, there was no vendor out there pulling subs.
Sure.
And since these vendors have popped up, they've kind of gobbled up the subs, and we have less people signing up to be substitutes locally because it's easier for them to go to a singular vendor and get placed at multiple districts. It's an interesting. I was talking to another administrator at the one of the career fairs, and we were acknowledging, since these vendors have popped up, it's affected our pool a little bit. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, great point. Other noteworthy items, we talked about March 8th being a great day for the organization. Literally drove a $6.2 million check over to Fidelity National Title, so drove very cautiously. It was very rainy, had the wipers going. But yeah, so a great reason to drive a check over there. And we know, we've talked about in this room again and in finance about the CalSTRS and CalPERS contribution rates continuing to go up over these coming years. So if we look at the current year budget, 23-24, it's about a $2.1 million expenditure. If you look ahead to next year, it's about 2.4. As we grow staff and as compensation grows naturally, right, moving on step and column and things like that, just the dollars go down there. And these are dollars that staff do not see, but the organization expends or will not see until they reach retirement age, right? So they're sitting out there, they're paid down the state, it provides a fantastic benefit. Pensions are really a thing of the past and not too many agencies these days, so it's a great thing that staff can rely on that being there for them. So if you take a look at the pie, no pun intended, on 3.14 day pie chart, you can see the revenue distribution, essentially how the money comes in. So the LCFF being the local control funding formula, state funding, the EPA, the Education Protection Account, also state funding, special education, mostly state, some federal funding in there, other state and other local funds. So that's kind of, so really predominantly funded by state revenue. And then the distribution, how it goes out the door, it's really a staffing cost, about 80% for staffing when you comprise certificated, classified benefits and those things, put it all together. What's not really represented in that 80% are some of our vendor costs. So we use quite a bit of vendors for, you think about Clean It and Law and Order and some of these other vendors that we've talked about in the past. Those are on the vendor side of the house and not on the employee side of the house. So again, that's just something to think about too. And then again, this is also in your board packet, but here's the second interim. If you wanted to look at it from a purely numbers standpoint, again, still as a first interim, projecting a positive budget of that $500,000 for this year, but also positive budgets going out in the next few years as well. And then we can jump ahead. So, looking ahead, we are prime in budget development season, and not just Westlake Charter, but every other charter district in the state. Like, now is the time we are all working on next year's budget. And as Hope alluded to, it is such an odd time right now because things are just very interesting down at the state level, right? There's like differences to the tunes of tens of $billions on what's going to happen with the revenue. So again, thankful for the shrink the shortfall proposal that came out today. It's great to hear that the legislators under the state are thinking about it, talking about it. Hopes that they take some action on it because again, the governor and the legislators will need to come together to craft a plan here in the next couple months. The governor is actually due in about 2 months, really, to come up with his May revised proposal. So that will really set the stage for what our budget is based upon heading into next year. Last slide. Overall, the budget continues to be healthy. The multi-years continue to be healthy. We'll see what happens over the next couple months as we get more information in about funding, COLA rates, potential deferrals, that type of thing. So we'll be very much in tune with it. But since we're talking about really specific second interim, the second interim's a good budget. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Other than that, I would just look for approval.
Do you want to have anything you wanted to add as finance chair?
Nothing to add, no. I'm happy to move the item if nobody else has any questions.
We'll take the motion and then pause for questions. Not seeing anything, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Farley.
Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Nurali,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to the academic report.
Very good, very good. Moving on some slides here. Where am I? There we go. All right, well, I've got some slides prepared for academic report. You know, it is right on time in the regular time slot here in March. We have completed our, our fall NWEA. And remember, in the fall, we talk about NWEA, but we also kind of go over our CASP results from the previous spring. So I think we did that. We talked achievement gap on CASP. We talked NWEA fall. We did that. We come around the horn, post-January, and now we're going to look at NWEA as our second round. We're going to show you that, every fall, like every winter, we underperform fall. Don't totally know why. I show a slide why I think we do. And then we try to use that as a predictor for how we think we're going to do on CASP. So tonight we're going to look at NWEA's universal screener. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the interventions we utilize because of NWEA. Then we're going to do some CASP predictions. This is a big year for us. A couple things that are influencing our data is, number one, we always give you 3rd through 8th grade data because that's who's going to take CASP. Ruh-roh. Now we got 11th, right? So you got your 11th graders coming in, and also full disclosure, I mean, these 3rd grade babies those were our pandemic kiddos, and they're probably receiving the most intervention out there. And between the 3rd grade and the 11th grade, I mean, we've come down. Looking at NWEA, I know we're all still working hard from now till CASP, but it's worth looking at. It's worth talking about. So let's take a little peek here. What are we bringing you? Board goal 1. Oh, it's so important. We said it twice. Board goal 1. Board goal 1. You're right. Our goal is to look at data regularly. So we're going to look at it regularly. I'm going to say it twice. We're looking at it regularly because that's our goal. My particular goal, right, which aligns with board goal 1, is executive director goal 1, which again, make sure that board sees what we're doing academically, and then WASC goal 3, which is develop systematic approaches. So it's just, we have a real commitment here to look at this data, whether it makes us smile or makes us scratch our head and go, So I wanted to show you this image on the right here is an internal data dashboard that we utilize because we started developing it 2 years ago when we first set this board goal. But it's because our C&I team has been building these data protocols for teachers and admin. Now, teachers do a great job because they have PLC time and they do their thing. They're really good at it. Admin, Jen Kayou and her team have been saying, okay, admin, this is our data protocol, and we're using this multi-year data We're sitting down, because that was one of the commitments that came out of my executive director goals these last couple of years. So, starting to regularly use that data in a protocol-driven way, much like the teachers do. I know I presented last month about the 3 tiers of data. What's the data that everybody sees, including us here on YouTube? What's the data that admin's gonna look at? What's the data that teachers are gonna look at? And full transparency, teachers look at data that I don't look at, because I don't think I should be looking at your data. That's for you. I look at more whole school or, grade span data. So our team now has 3 years of data uploaded into our own data dashboard system. We utilize a Google product called Data Studio, so we can visualize the data, quickly. And it's really helping us, tune in. And as I was talking about earlier, we think our data is down a little bit, 311, but we're looking at the K1 groups as really performing really well. Kind of similarly to the way we did back in 2019 before pandemic. And so we're starting to see that our practices and our amazing staff, are kind of, we're getting our wind back. And I think as you look at, a couple of cohorts who started off in distance learning as kindergartners, we've been pouring intervention into them, and we probably will be for, the next decade. So they might be a little bubble group through, but we see a lot of hope on the horizon because we're able to look at multi-year data in this way. So, you can see some of the images on the left there are just kind of from our internal dashboard that we utilize. I mean, that's the type of stuff we get a chance to look at is, individual local assessments and NWA assessments right there. So we did our roundup in January. We have our next review in April, and this is your review tonight as a board. So we'll kind of dive in. We're going to kind of talk about that standard deviation curve over there. Remember, NWA is a norm referenced assessment, right? So you can't get 100% because there's no 100%. It keeps asking you questions until you get several wrong. So it'll keep getting harder until you get some wrong, which drives some kids absolutely bonkers. My daughter just goes, sorry I said that, daughter, but it drives her nuts. Like, she'll sit there and be like, I'm like, hey, that's calculus. You're not going to get it. Like, I'm going to sit here for an hour and figure it out. Because it pushes you to get some wrong, because then it knows where you are on the norm reference, meaning at the 50th percentile, you are, the average for your age and for the number of weeks that you've been in school. So when did I take this test? And other 14-year-olds like me, when did they take the test? And am I in the 50th percentile? So because it's norm reference, right, we get a scaled score. Oh, you're a 452. What does that mean? What's a 452? Well, on this many weeks in school and for your age, a 452 obviously means, you're in the 61st percentile or the 37th percentile, right? Above the average or below the average. So, these are all based on a set of 2020 norms. And what I want to show you is that students who score in the 61st percentile are predicted to meet standard on CAS. And I say this every year, but I'm going to say it again. So it's interesting that on a nationally normed reference test, how we expect children to do on average, the 50th percentile, right? That's the middle. To meet standard in California, you have to be 11 points above average to meet standard in California. But we know for other states, on the same white paper produced by NWEA, well, you don't have to be the 61st percentile. The predictor is much different in other states. It's great. We got a rigorous state. That's good for us. But it's an interesting acknowledgement. Now, why does that matter? Well, a 450 in the fall might have been a 61st percentile. And if you're still a 450 come in the winter, you might have shifted down to the 50th percentile. So you'll see a student, if you look at a student NWEA report, you're like, okay, Steve, you were a 450. Hey, man, you grew to a 460. You went scale score up 10 points. But the norm has shifted. It's 16 weeks later. You actually went down from the 61st percentile to the 55th percentile. That went up. Welcome to norm reference testing. So I just give you that. I mean, I don't know if it's interesting or not, but I'm interested in it. And it helps me understand what we're looking at here. The two reasons that I think that I don't know why you think we do NWA, but the reason I think we do NWEA is that, first as a universal screener. Remember on that tiered approach to education, what is tier one? It's what everybody gets. It's universal access. Everyone should get an amazing teacher, an amazing lesson, amazing curriculum. What does everybody get? What do some kids get? What do a few kids get based on what they actually need? Well, universal access should be coupled with universal screeners so that we go, hey, We gave this kid our best teacher and our best curriculum and our best time in school, and this kid, based on the screener, didn't do as well as everybody else. They maybe need some tier 2 support or some tier 3 support. So NWA is a universal screener because it's norm referenced and because everybody takes it in the same week of the year. So it's easy for us to go, okay, who's overperforming, underperforming? And then also use it as a CASP predictor. It's not perfect, but it gives us a good approximation. So we look at it as a universal screener by saying, hey, look, from the average to the high average to the high, how are we doing? Oh, yeah. Well, I have paper for you. Thank you. And it has this slide on it. Yeah, so because I'm gonna run through this slide, and if you want to keep staring at the numbers, they'll be right in front of you. Thank you, Hope. So I started with math. These are 3rd through 8th graders because I'm doing universal screening. When I jump to CASP prediction, I'll include the 11th graders. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hope. So let's look at this universal screener for 3rd through 8th grade, and what it says is 57% of our students are in the average to high range, right? In a traditional public school where you're saying, hey, on a scale of A, B, C, D, F, these kids are all passing school. Okay, right? We're going to jump to the 61st percentile for CASP in a minute, and the number will go down. But 57% on average in math, and 69% high to high average to high in reading. I'm going to do an achievement gap analysis based on this for 3-8 because I do the achievement gap analysis for CASP, but this year I decided to also include it in the spring for this NWA report, just so we keep it on the tip of our tongue all the time. And then from there, I'm going to go and talk about how we utilize anyone below the 21st percentile for intervention, for that tier 2 intervention. So let's dive in here and kind of take a look at looking at this data through an equity lens. Here's math, and let's talk achievement gap. Again, since we're doing winter versus fall, I'm going to put them both up there. You'll see that, I don't think that's more than a standard deviation. You could call that improvement from a 32, improved to 26. Yeah, it could be improvement. It's still, a 25-point gap, 26-point gap. So it's significant. It's worth looking at. It's interesting to acknowledge that, if we look at our African American achievement, only 31% of our students are meeting average, high average, or high. And 57% of our white students, or 75% of our Asian students. So the gap is real, right? So I know that, look at some of my colleagues, we're doing some work with the team to do some surveying around DEI, and hey, what do we need here? What support do you need as a teacher to help reach out to our communities who are historically marginalized and are showing a gap here? So it's something we should bring to this room every time and pull up. It's in our charter that it is a commitment for us to work on. And the gap is a little closer in reading. It's actually, it went 1 point the other way, but it's a little better gap, I suppose. But there's still a near 20-point gap between our African American students and our white students. And again, just to contextualize this, why do we use the white-black achievement gap of the African American performance versus the white performance, and not look at the 2 or more races or the the Asian or Latinx, Hispanic percentages? Because in the literature regarding achievement gap, the African American students versus the white students is what we typically measure. When we do that, we often look at national standards and recognize the Asian students actually typically outperform the white students in national norm testing and in California testing. But that white-black is the traditional white-black achievement gap is what we traditionally look at. Why? Well, because if these kids and these kids live in the same neighborhood, go to the same school, theoretically have access to the exact same thing, why is it such a persistent gap? If it was a one-off, if this happened and you were like, well, that's interesting, and then I came back next time and it hadn't happened, but I've been here for 10 years, and it's never been inverted, ever. So some people say, wow, why are you talking about it? Well, I don't know, because it's never changed. So We'll keep working on it. We'll keep doing the work we need to do. But we won't stop talking about it until it changes. Okay, I brought it up to show NWEA. I typically do it during CASP, and I will again. But let's go in and say, well, what do you do? So what do you do? Clearly, you have some students performing higher than other students. What do you do for students who are performing at any level? Well, number one, it is a universal screener, and these data points are received by our classroom teachers and utilized by our classroom teachers, as well as our teachers help our students re-engage through the MTSS process based on this data. And I think sometimes when I look at the performance scores and I feel a little doomy and gloomy, like, oh, we're not doing well enough, I do actually recognize that the practices that are described on that slide right there are pretty exemplary. When you walk up and down the hall and you walk up and down the street and you talk to other educators and they really start to understand what we do. When you get this data in, you have a whole team of MTSS folks who are then case managing students. We have hundreds of students being case managed and getting, digging deeper data reporting and interventions for English, for reading and for math. I mean, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So sometimes I look at those data points, those scores, and I'm underwhelmed. But I go, hey, you know what? The work that they're doing to get where we are, we should really be praising our educator teams out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I find this interesting, just in tying back to the survey results, right? And tell me if I'm wrong, but this is also part of the reason why we allow for retesting, right? Because we re-engage on subjects and we're going back. So if we just kept moving along, regardless of where that data point is, how would we ever make any progression?
Yeah, if you, in the earlier example with Ms. Patel, like if you didn't pass that addition test here, we're like, well, we're just moving on.
Right.
Well, by the time we got to the end of the year, there's like, how would we know you were ready for this big, important test? So we are willing to retest, re-engage, and reassess to ensure that you have met standard by the end of the year. And look, these tests aren't perfect, and I think as educators, we look at them sometimes and say, hey, they don't tell the whole story. But look, you guys, I mean, honestly, this is what's up on the dashboard. This is what people see when they drive down the street and they go, hey, tell me about that school. And a realtor goes, oh, well, this is their test scores. So, it's real enough. And yeah, part of the reason we do re-engagement and reassessment is to make sure that before they take CASP or before the end of the year, they have met standard.
And I really only mention it because there's so many pieces of that fit into that re-engagement puzzle that when you get survey results or you do this, you have to remember all the it's intrinsic into what we do, and so it's in all these different pieces, and you may see it on that one piece, but it's really happening throughout all the layers of the organization.
Yeah. It is, for sure.
This is part of again, education scaffolds. So if you don't understand the base, how do you build on it?
Yeah. Okay, so I really love this piece here because I want to kind of show you a little bit of data that, I think we're proud of the work that we're doing, even if we're not excited about the results in a moment where, some of our kids have come through the largest, educational deficit that we've seen in a generation, right? Our poor, all of them at some point lost a couple years, and we're still trying to climb our way out. But our students, below the 21st percentile receive a digging deeper case management approach where we go and we say, okay, how's the child struggling? Let's look at local assessments, look at skill assessments. Let's look at their NWA, but then also interview the student. I mean, they really get a full kind of case management approach to, hey, what other supports might you need as a student? We set individual SMART goals, and then we assign targeted interventions for students. And as you walk this campus, and as you walk this campus, you'll often see 3 kids with an adult in a flex room or in a collab room or somewhere. What are they doing over there? This is what they're doing, right? They're finding appropriate times to go, hey, can I grab these 4 right here? Okay, yeah, I'll bring them back. And they go and they get their, appropriate math or, language arts interventions. And so here's a couple that we utilize. And what we found is that this is the percentage of students who made score gains based on, intervention. So we pulled these kids who are below the 21st percentile in fall. We gave them intervention through Waggle Math, Foundations Tier 2, small groups, that's reading, phonics intervention, and Just Words, also reading intervention. And those students made progress on the winter scores that you just looked at, right? So we know when children receive the intervention that's appropriate for them, that they do make gains. Now, some didn't, right? 15% of the kids who engaged in this intervention didn't make growth on their fall to winter score, but 85% did, right? And it's funny because I look at public funding for education and I go, hey, if we fully funded education, which people talk about doing, I hope everybody who works here would get a raise. But I'd want more people. Because if I had more people, I could pull more kids out and do more of that. I mean, what holds us back here is, there's only one Rachel Trin. She's great, but she only takes 3 or 4 kids at a time and pull them aside. And so these kids right here, when you do it, it works. There's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so many human beings, Yeah.
I just have a question. Have we looked at how much attendance impacts these scores and these percentages? Or is that not something that we...
That's a good point. I mean, I could bring that back. I'm going to ask A-Dub to ask that at my next admin. The attendance team has a whole weekly attendance piece. Are you asking if that group of students, we've done like a correlated data table on them, or?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if these students are the ones who are receiving the intervention, are they here to receive the intervention?
Yeah. I wonder. Yeah. What is the attendance on this group of 100 children versus the whole, maybe?
Right, what's the correlation
Yeah.
between their attendance and
Yeah.
their percentage?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. A-Dub's taking notes via YouTube. A-Dub, let's look at that. All right, she'll see that.
One more question.
Yeah, please.
I saw that the norm, the percentile, from the first slide you did, was based pre-pandemic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know what, I'm sure you probably don't, but what kind of their goal is? Because will it next year then be current times?
Yeah, so they do these big norm studies are really fascinating. I don't know if what kind of nerdy stuff you guys read, but these big norming studies are fascinating, and it takes a ton of data. And because they look at how everybody's performing, they go, okay, you're 12 years old and you took this test at week 13, so you're in that group with all these kids. That's fascinating. I guess we're done. Anyway, there's massive data sets and massive. This is awesome. This is good. And so they do that. The NWA does them typically 3 to 5 years in these cycles. And I'm like, hey, you guys, it's 2024. Your last norms are from 2020. We all know what happened in 2020. Like, we could really use a new data set on these norms. However, in their defense, we're also seeing correlation between our performance on NWA and CASP. So we're kind of like,
It's good that it's stayed there.
Right.
But also,
right.
there's probably a benefit in that.
Right. I'm very, I probably shouldn't say this on YouTube. I hope if the state superintendent's not listening. Hello, Mr. Thurman. I think I'll be very interested to see what happens. We know that our third graders who are taking the CASP test this year were the kids from the pandemic who were in kindergarten, and as they enter, everyone's got the same situation. And so I'm very interested what happens to the California scores this year, whether or not the state of California adjusts how they report. We'll see. We'll see what happens, because you would think it would just be a straight, this scale score meets this outcome. But sometimes the state of California, we've seen in the past 5 years, as they've developed new metrics, they've had to adjust and massage, when big.
Did anything change last year? Because arguably the fourth graders were almost as big of an impact.
So I remember a year or two ago us waiting for CASP data to come back, and we had done our own quantitative analysis of how we did, and then remember the data stalled. Then they brought in the not the computer automated test results, but the performance tests. The performance tests really brought up scores that year, which is interesting. So yeah, you hard to know. I don't know. And those performance tests which are a part of the testing regimen, can't bring a kid's scores down, but they can only bring a kid's scores up. And that particular year, as I recall, I was like, wow, okay. We felt great about that because everybody did. Okay, sorry, I'll keep going. We use this as universal screener. Now we're going to switch over into a predictor, right? So universal screener is who's in the 21st percentile, right? Who needs the most support? Jumping to a predictor, we go, well, we know you have to be in the 61st percentile, we assume, roughly the 61st percentile, according to that white paper that NWA has produced, to meet standard on CASP. So that looks like a 37-46. Those would be, low scores for us. Now, I don't know what the rest of the state's going to look like, but I do look at this and I go, hey, these 22 and 24% down here, these kids in average, those are what we used to call bubble kids. And those are definitively like the deal maker, deal breaker set of kids in this high stakes testing environment right now at this particular time for us. So we'll find out how this group does. And if you split that group and half go up and half stay down, it changes things dramatically, right? So if we look back, thank you, slow there. We typically go from fall to winter, and that chart slides over, and our number drops. We only drop one little point there in math, but the number's low. I mean, 37% is our lowest on record for this, but we also have the new 11th grade, and again, we talked third grade. Is this our baseline? We'll see. Same thing in English. There's a slightly larger drop from a 49 to 46, but the 3 points the previous years, it's always been 3 to 5 points, a drop between fall and winter. But this chart's the one that gets me like, okay, we're watching. These are the big state scores. So in the fall of last year, remember we were just 3.8 though. We were 57. Oh, we dropped 5 points down to 52. And then on CASP, we were at 59. So if you go, okay, you were 57 to 52 to 59. Well, now we're a 49, dropped to 46. What's that going to mean out over here? Right? Now, one of the things we have going in our favor at this particular time is that we will no longer be categorized as an elementary school. We'll be categorized as a high school. What does that mean? Well, when you look at the color-coded dashboard, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, you need to score a certain score to be green, right, on your performance. Well, they hold high schools to a different set of scores than an elementary school, because elementary schools always outperform high schools. So as a K-12, we may be on a different 5x5 chart. Regardless, we want to hope those middle kids, those kids in the middle, outperform expectation. Just do the same thing with math. We'll just jump right to the end there. You guys have it printed out in front of you. But look at that. I mean, from 43 down to 38, again, kind of like that's a 5-point difference. Interestingly, it's kind of tighter there. But still, if you were a 38 to 45 or you're a 37 to 44, maybe, So we have lots of students in intervention. If we could get more, we would do more. I think the future, again, looks bright on where we're going, but I think we're in a moment right now where we're like, okay, let's buckle up, invest in the work we're doing and see what we can do to help our kids perform well this year on CASP. We'll be taking CASP 3rd through 8th grade and 11th in April and May. In June, we'll get the initial analysis, and in the fall, we'll get the initial analysis in June. And then our conversation around the fall is, hey, we'll be in the second year of math adoption. I think the outlook, and we think the outlook on, at least on the K-8 side on math looks good. I think it's going to take 3 to 5 years, and we said that when we bought the curriculum, but we are really heading in the right direction. I think our phonics program on the K-5 side also is helping. So I think the long-term outlook for scores, I think we're all right. We are investing in some Tier 2 math intervention We did a pretty good job with the phonics intervention these last few years, and we've been piloting some different math interventions, and we're like, hey, we got to get going. This is really needed for us. We also have the capacity building project, which is the Everest Academy, our professional development. We're really targeting universal design for learning. We're going to be doing some heavy work in the fall for English learners as well. And so I think, we're really targeting some things that, like, it would be fun to do a big module on artificial intelligence and that type of work. I want to do that fun stuff, but we are targeting the things I think that will have impact and outcome for our student achievement. And again, our intervention team, meets regularly to discuss our students and their progress in case management. All righty, questions, thoughts? What do you got? Any notices and wonderings?
The reading drop feels different. I know they're
Yeah.
both and both, but I feel like we've often excelled on the reading side. Not that we're not.
No, it's all right. Yeah, it was. No, I agree.
Put a negative spin on it, but that feels
Yeah.
like it
feels
feels
like
like
a
a
whoa,
very
yeah.
large whoa.
Oh yeah, we've seen 67% on reading on CASP, which is super strong. And to see it that low, you're like, wow, okay. Again, these are predictors.
For me, I think we've talked about how much COVID impacted learning, but
Yeah.
really these numbers really play, kind of demonstrate that
Yeah.
as well, to take into consideration the third grade level, and then obviously, I know we have a little variance adding in the 11th grade, but really just comes to show from an education standpoint, kind of
Yeah.
what that impact was from an education perspective.
Yeah, and Amy, you're right. I mean, I keep talking about third grade because they're like definitively like this bubble group here. Like, hey, fourth grade was like in kindergarten when it shut down. Yeah, so they got the good stuff, and then in March they went out and didn't come back till they were in third grade. Yeah, so yeah, we're definitely pouring intervention in, but it's going to take some time.
I think too, like an important communication piece. Our scores may be high and we may not need it. I think there's a public perception that now that we're 2 years out, right, that everything
It's
should
over.
be right and ready
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And it's not, because I don't think people understand that, like, it's going to take time and that the repercussions, it's like when you have, with even class population, right? When we went from 3 to 5 in kinder, right, that had to roll all the way forward.
Right.
And so this will have to roll all the way forward, and I wonder if there isn't a piece of at least talking about that and trying to get a shared understanding of what it looks like.
Yeah.
Trying to support students where they're at from the day they come into the door until they graduate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's all over now, right? Everything's fixed.
Everything's fixed.
We're all back to normal and completely comfortable engaging in social settings.
As demonstrated by this moment.
100%. It's not uncomfortable at all. No, I just share that because you hear about it and you
Yeah.
read about it and then you think about it, and I like to be ahead of naysayers.
Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns? I'm available if you need me. I'll certainly report back.
Thank you.
All right.
That brings us to future agenda items. I'm not thinking of any at the moment, are you? I know there will be some.
Always are. Yeah.
Always
I
are.
don't know.
So we'll go ahead and jump to reflection. What worked well, or what would be better if, and who would like to go first?
Thank you, Sean.
So it's my committee, so I may be a little bit biased, but Steve's presentation on the
Yeah.
interim, I always appreciate even though it's the second time hearing it, it was still new stuff because,
Yeah.
They keep
Yeah.
throwing new stuff at us, so there's, but it's always so well put together and easy to understand, and thank you.
Yeah, agreed. And the timeliness of like adding a slide because somebody said something today. Yeah, good. Yeah, that's good.
I was going to thank you for adding our text stream. Basically, right? That slide was our text stream from the middle of the day today. Suzanne.
I appreciated all the work that you did on NWBA. We take this to as a school and we see similar trends, so it helps us to know that we're not alone and we're all doing the best we can for students, and we hope for just increased
You see similar trends on the third grade end?
Yes, oh yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's good to hear. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to CCSA's conference this Monday, and one of my like talking points is I want to walk around and be like, how you guys doing? How's your third graders? You know, I mean, because if this is the trend that I believe it is from my little, echo chamber of admin that I talk to, I just want to confirm and hear what people are doing.
For me, it's the fact that I appreciate that we even talk about it, right? I think some schools might want to hide this data and not own it, but we've always, I think, strived to put sunshine on these moments. And it may turn out to be nothing, but at the same time, we're giving our community the opportunity to go on this with us, or, and you're bringing us along with you, and I really appreciate that.
That's good. Thank you. What worked well for me, or what would have worked better if? This may seem trivial, but it's really not. The technology worked very well tonight. Mic's on, mic's off. Big shout out to Jessica Block. I was down in San Francisco today. I got back just before governance, and it was all set to go. And behind the scenes, it's a lot of little clicks to get this to stream to there, to go to the YouTubes and the whatnot. So that worked really well for me today.
And our intern too, right? Should we shout out?
That's right. Carissa Block, our intern, official, always did the whole setup, and yeah, she did great. Did staple or a whole bunch of those. You want to reflect what worked well, what would have worked better if?
Yeah, I always appreciate hearing the viewpoints on the reports, like the stuff that we take for granted or that we just do every day. Like we just do what we do, but to hear from the board, or I'm like waving like people can see, there's a fly. But just hear, right? It's the coffee. Just hearing the stuff that we don't necessarily think about because we are so busy just doing what we do. So it's good to hear.
It's good. What worked well? What would have worked better if?
What worked well for me, I think, was a pie break.
Yeah, pie break was great. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Amy. That was delicious, so thank you. And I always love the reports where we're talking about the data and we're looking at the patterns and the trends. But I just can't help it, my teacher heart, as we're talking about these third graders.
I know.
I'm seeing their faces that I, taught on screens, and I'm thinking about these 11th graders, and I'm like, I know them. And so the work that we're doing here, looking at the numbers, I'm not trying to say that we don't see them. What I'm trying to say is the opposite of that, actually.
Yeah.
As we're looking at these big gaps in achievement, or these dips, or these, we're really trying to support every single student because we see every single student.
Yeah.
And I just love that we are that kind of a school where we think macro, we think micro, we think person. So.
Yeah, I think it's critical that we're not blaming and shaming. We are saying, hey, who needs the most support? Let's get some more support to that team. Yeah, for real. Dr. Boo?
I really appreciated the academic report, just how the NWA was used as a universal screener. It's so hard. I see other just schools really struggle to find some sort of relationship between, or how NWA can inform. This is a normative test to inform CAS, which is criterion based.
Totally, I know.
And just to see the incredible work that is done so thoughtfully and the interventions is really great. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we find after this is CAS. So just good job.
It's good.
Great job.
Yes, I love that one's norm reference, one's criterion based, one is on a quintile, and one's on a quartile. So this has 5 levels you can score on. This has 4 levels, and we're like, okay, if you score right here, you're gonna score. You're like, come on, people. Yeah, I know. We do too much.
I like the colors.
Right. Yeah, right. Ms. Husted, what worked well, or what would have worked better if?
I always like to see the parent survey results.
Totally.
It's similar to what Amy was saying about, all of the work we put into student outcomes, but also looking at how the parents are feeling, how the families are feeling, and trying to improve there. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I like to see how everyone's feeling.
And similarly, just like we said about third, just because there are things to improve shouldn't turn us off. It is like, yeah, of course there's things to improve. There's always things to improve, and we should embrace that, yeah. Ms. Patel?
Both of for you guys, just some of the comments I was gonna mention, which is a parent survey, and what I really loved about it is really going into that survey, not saying, you know, we got responses, and there's these other things we're gonna come back and improve on, and I think just hearing that voice and making it a part of the discussion at a board level, it's great. It's great to know that, it's from top down and down.
No. Steve, you want to play?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the academic data was on point, the parent surveys was on point, but I'll reflect back to the quick slide that happened earlier, the difference makers, right? When that came up, the kind of the look around the room, like, oh, I remember, right? To hear Ms. Rice going, oh, it like worked out so well. And I reflect back to, there's a book called The Culture Code that some of us, maybe many of us have read.
Yeah.
And there's a piece in there called Artifacts, right? And it doesn't have to worry, it's not about SEL or academic pieces, it's like, what are the things that make the organization the organization? And when you have something like difference makers come back year after year and you can see the effect it has, you're like, oh yeah, that's one of the artifacts for Westlake. So
Yeah, what's cool about that is hanging out with 11th graders and mentioning, oh, they're doing difference makers today, and 11th graders go, oh, or you go, yeah, or you go like, oh, hey, we need touch of an understanding today, and they're like, oh, is that the one with the wheelchairs? I love that one. And you're like, yeah, these artifacts don't belong to the grown-ups, although they do. They also belong to these kids that were about to graduate from high school, and they're gonna walk off and be like, yeah, I'll keep that with me forever. So cool.
Having a senior who was Elizabeth Caddystat.
Okay, there you go.
And having her in government, it's been really interesting to see the facts that she may have learned doing that assignment come up in her modern day
There we go.
education, like full circle. Will you do one more check for public comment before we
Sure.
adjourn?
Seeing none.
Perfect, then we will adjourn the meeting at 8:32.
Thank you, everybody. Do, do, do.